though, I mean, I've had some good times with the BBC as well. It hasn't been all bad by any means. And, you know, there are one or two very good people there who really do care about other people and so on. But it is, you know, and I think we have to realise this. And people often say, well, what's it like working for the media? It's very, very competitive and cutthroat. And of course, you know, if somebody is threatening you, the last thing you want to do, or is a threat to you, not threatening you, that was a very poor way of putting it. If somebody is a threat to you or your position, then of course you're going to try and undermine that person. And that's, you know, a lot of what goes on. That just isn't related to me. That happens all the time. And the BBC, like a lot of organisations, doesn't have any processes for handling that, really, or doesn't have any sensible processes.
Well, now that's the first thing you said today that makes absolutely no sense to me. So you're saying, okay, come on. You're just so that I'm pretty crazy myself, but just to make sure I'm not totally crazy. Did you just say that the BBC, a global news agency, doesn't have a process for managing or managing complaints within its own employee corps? Really?
They will tell you that there is a process, but the reality was, and somebody quite senior within the BBC was a bit surprised when I explained what happened. I didn't get 1 second's worth of support throughout this time. And she was quite surprised. I mean, I guess was hoping for some support from somewhere, but you know what? I didn't get any support from anybody in the BBC. In fact, you know, they closed ranks. You know, that was what happened. You know, and I've seen it so many times. I could name countless cases. I wouldn't do that, of course, publicly, but I can name countless cases of people who've been bullied, who've been the victims of bullying, and nothing's been done about it at all. It's a shame.
Yeah. And, you know, and the same thing, similar things have happened maybe in my own life in very different ways, but in my own life and in the lives of many, many people with disabilities and without disabilities all over. I think that this issue of discrimination and bullying and workplace harassment and I think that this is a far larger problem than we're actually aware. I mean, you're aware of it, but I'm just saying globally, I think this is a really big problem that we oftentimes don't even talk about.
Yeah. Well, and I think sorry, Aaron, I was going to say, I think for an organization to really face up to it, you know, and obviously it's a huge leap of faith and an admission that things have been wrong. So, of course, you know, an organisation like the BBC or just a big government department, they aren't willingly and easily going to say, yeah, we've been getting this wrong. And even organisations, and I can name them, that have been taken to court for bullying, you know, and had findings against them. Even then, they still will issue the same old statement, we have robust processes in place, etc., etc. Well, they weren't that robust because the courts weren't impressed, you know.
Yeah, or the thing that cracks that, well, it doesn't crack me up, but the other way that they phrase it in the States is, anytime a company says we have an open door policy, I'm not walking.
Yeah,
I'm not walking anywhere near that open door.
Well,
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing is
you like that. Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, Aaron, the other one is when you hear an organisation say something like, we have a no-blame culture, and you go, you know, if that was obvious, you wouldn't need to say it.
Right. Or the other, or no, I mean, it really is a comedy routine. We have an open door policy. Or the other thing is, do you want to work for a company? A new line. We're super nice, you know.
Yeah.
Well, if you're super nice, why are you saying you're super nice? You know.
And the other one,
funny.
It is. Oh, absolutely. And the other one is, do you want to work for an organisation that doesn't provide you with any feedback after you've been for an interview? I was sitting in an organisation, and the receptionist was there, and I was waiting to go into this interview. She took a call very clearly from somebody who'd been for a job interview, and I heard her say, "Well, we don't provide feedback." And at that moment, I didn't want to work for that organization because I just thought, you know, if people have gone out of their way, prepared for an interview, the least you can do is give them, 5 minutes of your time. And if you've got 5 minutes, let me tell you a story of how I helped somebody. When I worked for a local council, we interviewed for a press officer job. And this woman was very, very good, but quite clearly she hadn't done any preparation. She wasn't visually impaired. But she phoned me up. She said, Tom, she said, can I get some feedback? And I said, well, yeah. I said, if you like, I'm quite happy to chat to you. Do you want me to be honest or polite? Yeah. And she said, honest. I said, are you sure? She said, yeah. And I said, yeah, okay. I said, look, if you'd done some preparation for this interview, you'd have got the job. If you'd known who the council leader was and maybe one or two of the other senior people, you'd have got this job. She went, okay, point taken. I get that. 4 months later, she phoned me up and I thought, oh my goodness, she's not suing me, is she, or something? And she said, I just want to thank you. And I said, what for? She said, I took your advice, your feedback on board, and I've now got a job working for the local health authority. And I was like, hallelujah. You know, it just shows, feedback can work. You know,
that's cool.
Properly.
You know, and these are the great stories and the great things that I love on my podcast. Those kind of weird stories that we walk through life. That's really weird, but that's really positive. You know, that's good. So she's probably a good worker then, and she's probably was truly a good person who needed the life lesson of preparation.
Yeah, she was just doing
the P world. The P world.
Yeah, I mean, we call it doing things on the fly. And I think she was doing stuff on the fly. She was so used to just kind of turning up to things. She was very quick, very sharp, very intelligent woman. But she just assumed she could turn up, she'd be fine. She didn't need to do much. But obviously somebody else had done more preparation. Wasn't quite as inspirational as her, but they got the job because, you know, we needed somebody that we could rely on and needed somebody to do the job. But it was great. I mean, and, you know, I always remember that because I kind of think, you know, in life, I think, you know, we should try and help each other and help people where we can, which may be one reason I'm not suited to the broadcasting industry because it doesn't tend to work like that.
I see. Well, I think you're extremely suited to it. I mean, yeah, I mean, I wonder if, who else have you shared your podcast with? I mean, I'm sure a lot of people would want to listen to your podcast. Yeah, well, and I noticed that what you send out are YouTube videos. So do you do a podcast or do you just record it over YouTube and produce YouTubes?
I do audio, but I put them on YouTube. And the reason I do that was because I found the other platforms, certainly things like Apple, were quite complicated. I mean, I'd love to get it on Apple, but every time I've looked into it, it's been so complicated. The reason I like YouTube is that it is very accessible. And when you click on the link, it plays. You know, you don't have to do anything else. Which I think is really quite good. I also use SoundCloud because some people like SoundCloud, so I put them on there. And the way I do it is I try and target my podcasts at people who I think would be interested in them. Now, a lot of the work I do, not exclusively, but a lot of the work I do relates to visual impairment. But I do other things as well. So I try and just find people on Twitter and Facebook and in my email contacts and WhatsApps and everything else, and just think that if they know me, they might be interested. If they're visually impaired or disabled, they might be interested. And, you know, if they look like they have just a general interest in other things, in life, in different things, then I make sure I include them as well. I'm sure I could do it more efficiently and more effectively. And if anybody comes across my podcasts, I'm always delighted when they're shared. Because like anybody who does a podcast, the one thing that we're obsessed by is how many people have listened or watched it or whatever.
In a sense, I would not. I do not disagree. I focus on collecting stories that are really interesting, that gives great people like you the chance to tell interesting stories. And that's helpful to me. It makes me feel better knowing
Mm,
that I helped you to tell your story. If I help, because I know this is true in my heart, and I hope it's true because I believe it to be true. So today I helped you. Well, that means today I also helped a million other people who are maybe frustrated or maybe being harassed at work. Well, maybe we just helped a million people by you telling your story in a beautiful and entertaining and touching way. And that's really what this is about for me. And I have found that somehow, I don't know how it works, but slowly I keep getting more views. I keep every
mm,
once in a while one more person notices. It gets
yeah.
easier for me to get someone on here. So somehow that just might be true. I don't
I
know.
always, I always say, if one person finds what I've done entertaining, interesting, informative, then that's great. That justifies it. And although I'm going to contradict myself well and truly. Although as we've said, we're all obsessed by the listening or viewing figures. The reality is, as I say, if there's somebody out there who's listened to this and feels that their life has in some way been enhanced or improved, or they've developed a strategy, or are forewarned, forearmed, and all the rest of it, then that's great. That's what I like to feel would be a great result of doing something like this. I think it's about sharing experiences. We all, many of us have a visual impairment, and therefore we come across many of the same obstacles, and it's about sharing those. But
Right.
the other thing is as well, and somebody said this to me a few months ago, and I think it's a great expression and one I'd not heard before. You've got to serve before you sell, and I think that is just such a really important concept.
Right.
That you've got to do things for other people before you can expect them to do something for you. And it's something I really took to heart. Actually, I was like, oh my God, never thought of that before. But it's right. You do have to, and maybe I've not done enough serving, and there in the past, and therefore, need to do more before I start properly selling. I don't know, but I like the expression, and I think it illustrates perfectly whether you're visually impaired or not, illustrates perfectly what everybody needs to do. In life is to, is the way you can just try and help people, point people in the right direction if you can. If you can't, then you just have to be honest and say, I don't know the answer to that.
And I wish more people would be honest too. We need more
Mm,
honesty too. That would
yeah,
be that would be immensely helpful. Yes.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's like when you get stopped in the street and people say, do you know the way to? If I don't know, I will just say, rather than kind of say, oh, well, whatever it is, I will just say, no, I'm really sorry, I don't know where it is. But and equally, if I do, I will take time to point them in the direction and give them good directions, because that could be me 2 minutes later needing those directions from somebody
Right.
else.
Precisely.
And again, it's kind of, for me, a little bit, it speaks to this serve before you sell concept and an idea. I just think the more helpful you can be to other people, the karma will come round, hopefully one day.
I'm suspicious that's true. I'm suspicious
Yeah.
that's true. The other thing that I wanted to tell you is I've done a lot of traveling, and as I've traveled all over the world, one of the things I've been one of my dreams, I guess, is that I would like to get more information about blind sailing. As I said, I've done a lot of it on my side, here in the
Mm.
States, but I'm really looking for more of a bit of a more of an open ocean experience. I'm really serious sail trip for someone who's really wants to be on the ocean, who really wants to sail for an extended period of time. What as we say, I suppose in the business, as we say, who do you think I should talk to about this? And the reason I would ask is because it's going to take a couple of years for me as an American to be able to plan this out. We have to wait for the health situation to improve a little bit. These things take some coordination. Who would be a good person for me to talk to about it?
Well, certainly in the UK, there's a couple of organisations that offer that experience. I have just completed a series of 5 podcasts